Hello, everyone. Brenna Carls here, CEO and founder of The Mortgage Shop. I've got my loan coach, Lori, on the call with me today. She's going to be going through kind of like I do my slides with you guys to explain and teach you things. We're going to go through those, and then she's going to just basically have a conversation with me around them. She is one of our loan coaches that specializes in helping you expand your portfolio, realizing what good debt is versus bad debt, as well as helping you possibly increase your credit scores if that's something that needs to be done prior to getting under contract. So we are here. And let me pull up my slides really quick. While we're waiting, if everybody wants to introduce themselves in the comments, I'll be able to see where you guys are from. If you want to put where you're listening in at, and if it's warm or cold there. Today it's 70 degrees here, which is awesome. I plan to go outside hopefully after this and maybe just sit in the sun for a second. Lori, how cold is it there for you?
It's cooler today. We have clouds and rain here in Southern California, so it's kind of unusual. I think we're in the high 50s, so you're warmer than California right now.
Got it. Let's see. Slides. Add slides. Go. New Jersey, STS Plus. Nice. Okay. 70 in New Jersey today. That's neat. I figured New Jersey would be colder. Okay. It is uploading. Here we go. Somebody said the Facebook link wasn't working. So if you're watching from Facebook, let me know. Let me check to see if the live video is up on Facebook. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. So let's add this to the stage. Okay. So today we are talking about good debt versus bad debt. There is a difference. Good debt is the kind that makes you money. Bad debt is the kind that occupies space in your debt to income ratio. We're going to go through like each of them today. I'm going to go through how to offset bad debt out of your name to expand your portfolio as quickly as possible. Many of you always ask, how can I get property sooner? This is the way. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it with different strategies based on your current situation. Okay. So examples for good debt that makes you money. Income producing debt. What is that? Mortgages, HELOCs, construction loans, renovation loans. These are all on investment properties that make you income. It could be your primary residence if you are looking at a duplex or a triplex, something like that. As long as that debt, you're securing that debt and you're going to end up making income after that, that is an income producing debt. Bad debt is the kind that occupies space in your debt to income ratio and is not making you any money. This would be auto loans, student loans, credit cards, installments. If you were a co-signer on a loan, like a student loan for your child or co-signer for an auto loan for your child. Chelsea, I hate student loans too. Thank gosh I paid mine off way back in the day when I first started in this, and I was a big Dave Ramsey person when I get started. I will preface, I'm not a Dave Ramsey person anymore. But I do think it's a good idea if you are trying to pay off a lot of debt. It's not bad to look into his methods. I put auto loans as bad debt. Now, I know some of you started renting your cars on Turno and things like that, but it's not really, from what I've seen, I haven't seen many people that are lucrative with it yet. So for right now, we're considering auto loans bad debt, okay? All right. Transferring debt if you are married. So I want to talk about how to get debt bad debt out of your name, I want you to look at you and your spouse. So if one of you is the breadwinner of the family, the highest income earner, one of you is the lower income earner. Highest income earner, bad debt, which is auto loans, credit cards, authorized users. Let's see if we can just get those into your spouse's name, the one that maybe not is qualifying for these potential purchases of investment properties. How you would do that, you can refinance, you can call and ask if you can just get your name taken off of that loan, things like that. So you are able to refinance out of it. You are able to get your name off of it. I do want to show you a helpful hint though. If you cannot get off of any of these types of debt, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac allow debt like this to be excluded from your monthly debt to income ratio if somebody else has been paying it on time for 12 months in a row. So how do we combat this? So if you can't get your names off of any of these, you could have the other person, the spouse, open an account separate from you and have payments come out of that account. This could be your spouse. This could be your child if you co-signed on an auto loan with them or a credit card. Have them open up an account. Do not have your name on that account. Just have their name on it. Have the payments come from that account. And then you can show that account has been making 12 months payment on time for that specific debt. And then we are then allowed to exclude that from your debt to income ratio completely. This is what you need to do if you cannot get your name off of this bad debt. And again, remember, bad debt means, is this debt making me any money? If not, it's a bad debt. I'm not going to really count your primary residence, so don't get too serious on it, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's how you exclude it without getting your name off of it, essentially. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to add for that?
Yeah. So, if the credit cards are paid down, they're not going to be counting into your debt to income ratio, but you need to be cautious about canceling any cards that you've had for a long period of time, because that will affect your credit score. It also affects your total available credit line. And you want to make sure that your ratio on that is below 30% of your total available credit. So if you go starting to cancel cards to get them off of there, that could affect your FICO score. So I just want to caution people about that. So transferring, taking someone off the card, if it's not going to cause you to have to reapply, that would be probably the easiest solution. But just paying them off and closing them could hurt your FICO score.
And see, this is why exactly I have Lori on this call, because while I'm the one that you always hear from about how to leverage your debt and get more properties, she is more of a mastermind behind credit and how it will affect your credit and how to possibly keep your credit the same or increase your credit. And so what she's saying about the credit cards, she makes a really good point. Don't just to get off of them. Let's say you don't have your spouse on it and you just want to cancel the credit card. That could potentially hurt your credit depending on how old that credit card is, when the last time you've used it. So repeat that really quick, Lori, about
yeah. So your FICO score
for like 10 years. I mean,
well, so credit card companies, if you don't use your card and you don't have a balance on it, they're just going to cancel that card, and that can hurt your credit. I had that happen to me recently on a card. And it was one of my older cards, so it caused my FICO score to go down. So you need to make sure that you're using the cards, even if it's just, to pay for lunch and then you pay it off as soon as you get home or whatever, just to keep those cards active, because the FICO scoring system will look at your total available credit versus what you owe. And if those cards start canceling and dropping off, especially if they're an older card that you've had for a long time, it will affect your credit score. I recommend everyone to sign up for Experian.com for their free account. They're the only one of the bureaus that offers a totally free membership. The basic membership, you can look at your Experian credit. You can see when creditors are going to be posting your new balances, and show it gives just a nice overview of the amount of credit you have available versus how much you're using. It's just a really good free program to monitor your credit and keep it under control.
Nice. Yes, I highly suggest going to that Experian.com. The banner is up here if you want to look at the your screen and go to that and start monitoring your credit if that's important to you. If you really want to start figuring out what debts you can kind of push to the side to somebody else or get your name off of, this will also help you in that. Okay. And we will, as always, have questions at the end. So if you want to put your questions in the chat, you can. If you think you're going to forget your question, and then I'll get to them after we go through these slides. Okay. I feel like this slide, let's see. Can I see the whole slide? There we go. I think this slide is cut off, so I'll have to see what that slide says on the side for you guys. Nope, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that one either. There we go. Okay. Well, I can't see now. I'm trying to see my whole screen. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Okay. All right. If both spouses want to purchase a property, so let's say you're both, good W-2 earners. Maybe you want to, one person get one property, one person get the next. Make sure if one can qualify on their own, that the other is not on the mortgage loan with the spouse who qualifies. So I see this a lot where two people come to me and they say, okay, we, married couple, they want to purchase a property together. And let's say one of the spouses, they're like, yeah, I can cover the debt myself. And then they apply together on the loan. That doesn't make sense. This is why you have to work with somebody that talks about your current situation and then your goals for the next 1 to 3 years. Because if one of you qualifies by yourself, I'm going to say, okay, let's just keep one of you on the mortgage application. By all means, both of you all be on title when you close. So both of you have an ownership in that property. But one of you is only going to be counted against for that debt. If you both were on the loan when you didn't need to be, and let's say now you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy this property and then my wife's going to go buy this property. When you guys go to do that, that one debt that you close together will 100% count against each of you as opposed to only one of you. This will impact your debt to income ratio. This will also impact the number of properties you can have financed. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac allow you to have up to 10 maxed financed residential properties, 10 max financed. This means ideally, like if you and your spouse went and got all these properties together and put both of your names on the loan, then that only allows you maybe 10 properties if your debt to income ratio allows for it. But with this strategy that we work with you on, so we're not just doing your loan, we work with you on the entire strategy and build it up and move it out. After even just the first purchase, we can get up to 20 finance properties conventional. That has doubled now your portfolio, just conventional. We're not talking about DSCR. We're not talking about anything. We have now doubled your portfolio from what it would have been if you didn't have somebody specializing in this. Okay. So make sure if one can qualify on their own, that the other is not on the mortgage loan with the spouse who qualifies. I'm going to pull up this document to make sure I can see the entire slide because I don't know what it says. Is that all it says? Oh, yes. Okay. So that's all it says. This can also, so I said it can also increase your real estate portfolio quicker than one person trying to carry all of the good debt. So for example, let's say again, both of you want to get a property, you both can qualify. Well, let's say Bob, your husband, just closed on one. Well, now guess what? Now you can go get one in the same year. Maybe Bob can qualify for another one. Maybe you can qualify for another one. So now you've gotten 4 properties in 1 year versus only 2 if both of you are on the loan together. You're like, well, we're using, the properties are making us rental income. That's great. We can use proposed rental income to offset that debt for you. But as soon as you close, it's not proposed anymore. You got to show it. You got to show, put your money where your mouth is, essentially. And that's only going to be when you file your tax returns if it's a short-term rental. So after you close, that debt's going to count against you hard for that full payment until you file that rental income on your tax return for that year. So just keep that in mind. That's why I say you could possibly get 4 properties if y'all are going in it together as opposed to 2 if you strategize correctly. Having a happy medium of good debt versus bad debt between both of you is fine, but if one person cannot qualify for good debt, it's best to try and offload some of your bad debt to them. Having a happy medium of good debt versus bad debt between both of you is fine, but if one person cannot, that's just what I said. So I think he's just emphasizing that. Okay. Try to get that bad debt to the person that cannot qualify, because then that's going to open up your debt to income ratio for what? Good debt, which is income producing debt. Lori, yes. I know we talked about, I think it's in the next slide about credit, but speak on when you look at somebody, 2 people, and maybe they both qualify. What do you look at, such as credit and stuff, to be the deciding factor?
Well, I look at the FICO scores, because you may have one borrower that has over a 760 mid score, which 760 is the top tier. That's going to get you into the very best pricing if you've got 760. So you may have one person at 760 and your partner may be mid score 720. Well, if the 760 person can qualify on their own, you're better off to just have them on the loan, because then you're going to get better pricing.
Yep. And that's exactly why I wanted to make that point, because let's say one of you has a 680 and one of you has a 760 credit score. For most of you, if you don't know credit score tiers, 760 is going to be that highest credit tier range. 680 is going to be a lower credit score range, and your interest rate can vary drastically between those by maybe 1 point. So one of you could be possibly getting quoted as 6.875%, but the other is getting quoted as 7.75 to 8%. This is going to make your mortgage payment higher with a higher interest rate. And what is it going to do? We're all investors here, so it's going to affect your monthly cash flow because your payment's going to be higher. It's going to affect your debt to income. So we look at both scenarios depending on if you guys are in a good position to possibly both get good debt. We kind of make the executive decision at that point saying, hey, your spouse's credit's higher. Let's do this loan with them first to get that better interest rate. Let's work on your credit score. These are some things you can do. Do the Experian.com. Lori's really good at seeing like, hey, looks like you're maxed out, for example, on all of your credit cards. Maybe pay those down a little bit. And then the next time it reports to your credit score is a little bit higher. So as you get to know me and my team, I have people on my team that do exactly what I do and exactly what I coach you to do, because guess what? They've worked with me for years. So they know exactly how I do things. They do it the same way, but they also specialize in a few things. Like Lori's really good at, reissuing credit if we need to. I sometimes go to her and I'm like, hey, how do I do this again? Lori has actually been in, Lori, I'm not going to tell your age, but how long have you been in lending?
On the lending end, I started in 1991. I started my real estate career back in 1986.
Wow.
So I've been a broker here in California since 2000, and I was licensed as an agent in 1986.
So
And
Lori,
prior to that, I actually worked for my uncle, who was a broker in his property management company. So if you want to add those years in there too, we're probably at 40.
so I'm not going to share my age, but Lori's literally been in the business longer than I've been alive, folks. So, yeah, that's who you'll be working with too on our team at the mortgage shop. So just letting you know. All right, next slide. What if debt to income ratio becomes capped on good debt borrower? Well, there's a lot of things now that we can do to play with that. We can now shift strategies to do a DSCR loan for the borrower with less income or the borrower that has more bad debt. DSCR loans don't go off your personal income or personal debt. So guess what? Your spouse that doesn't have as much income or maybe has a lot of that bad debt can now qualify for an income producing property if you can't yet. This way it keeps you off of this mortgage while you have time to gain rental income on your properties that you have accrued to offset the mortgage payments for those properties. So let's kind of recap. You purchased 3 properties this year, 2024, and your DTI is capped. Have a spouse do a DSCR loan to obtain another property if you wanted. So they're getting it. They don't have to qualify debt to income ratio wise. You're not on that loan. So guess what? Still not going on your debt to income ratio. File rental income on your Schedule E at time of tax filing, year 2025 for tax year 2024. Now in 2025, can't read it because of the thing. In 2025, you will be able to, where is it at? There it is. You can try to qualify again for conventional financing if you show rental income on those properties you purchased in the last year. So it's basically rinsing and repeating, right? You have strategies now in place. So if you and your spouse are trying to figure out how to get your next property, your debt to income ratio is capped where it's about to be. Great. Have your spouse do another DSCR loan. And that way you are able to get properties. Your debt to income ratio is not affected. It still won't be affected next year because you're not on that property's note. So just keep that in mind.
Can I interject something?
Yes.
I know a lot of people have the opinion that these DSCR loans are a lot more expensive. So in the current market that we're in right now, the really only difference in interest rate is about 0.5% to go from a conventional 20% down investment loan versus the DSCR loan with 20% down. Now you're capped at 2% of seller concessions on a conventional investment, whereas a DSCR, you can negotiate up to 6%, which you can use that money to buy down your interest rate even further. So don't be afraid of DSCR. They come in 30-year fixed as well as, adjustable rate mortgages, just like the conventional. They work the same.
And actually the one that I see in your personal name, Lori, is not even a 0.5 point difference. It's like maybe 0.25 to 0.375 sometimes. And so it's not even that much bit higher of a debt or an interest rate. And then the 6% seller credits, guys, your closing costs will never and should never be 6%. But if you can get, conventional caps you at 2% seller credit on investment properties, DSCR is a whole new ballgame. It's just like a second home loan. You can get 6% seller credits. If you can get more than that, guess what? Have some of that go towards getting a lower interest rate. You're now getting a low interest rate on a loan product that you don't even have to qualify debt to income ratio wise. And that's another strategy that we do for you to make sure that you're cash flowing well and still growing your portfolio.
And you can use your LLC on both the loan and title, and they don't report to personal credit. So it's not going to prevent you from qualifying in the future for another conventional loan.
Yep.
So
the next slide is going to be about that strategy.
am I ahead of you? Sorry.
No, you're good. If you're not married, there's still a strategy for that. What Lori just said, you can be married too if you want to do this. But if you're not married, bad debt. Let's look into your current rate on each bad debt and see if you can consolidate credit cards into one installment loan with a much lower interest rate. So if you got a lot of these credit cards that you got with 0% interest and now it's like a 23% interest rate and it's really affecting your debt, we can essentially look at banks do unsecured lines of credit. Maybe they're having a good rate on their unsecured line of credit this month. We look at if we consolidate this credit card, if we consolidate this credit card that has 23% interest, we can get this unsecured line of credit that's only 10% interest and pay it off.
Can I interject real quick? Just be cautious. There's companies out there that are going to tell you to stop making your payments on these credit cards. Oh, we're going to consolidate and we're going to negotiate them down and all that. Those charge-offs and stuff in there are going to kill your credit. I've seen it over and over again. So unless it's just a legitimate company that's going to pay off those cards of what you owe on them without negotiating it down, to consolidate. Okay.
Yeah, I don't recommend those companies. I say go directly to a bank, get that unsecured line, be responsible enough to take those funds at that point and pay off your credit cards. There's companies out there that do it, that say they do it. You can do it yourself. I don't trust companies that do all of that because of what Lori said. So there are other options. So you can look at that. That's getting into the nitty gritty. But if you really want this, and then you're still capped, no matter what we do, this is an option. Because if it's a lower interest rate, this is going to lower your monthly payment total, right? Which what? Lowers your monthly debt to income ratio. Auto loans. Look at your current interest rate. Call around banks to see what a refinance interest rate would be on your auto loan. You can then thin out the payment for a longer period of time, kind of like a refinance on a primary or a mortgage, and possibly get a lower interest rate. Lowering your monthly payment, which what? Lowers your monthly debt to income ratio. Now, another rule that you may not know, if you have an auto loan, not a lease, but an auto loan, and if you have 10 or less months remaining on that, the lender you're working with should automatically exclude that from your debt. If they are not, it's probably because they do not know what they're doing, or they're just unaware that they're allowed to do that. 10 months or less remaining on any type of installment loan other than an auto lease, you are allowed to exclude from your debt. So keep that in mind. If your debt to income ratio is capped, consider what Lori just said, LLC DSCR only loans. This will allow you to get a DSCR loan, not show up on your debt, and you can continue to purchase properties throughout the year, or this will allow you next year to start the process over again and hopefully qualify for more conventional financing properties. Let me see what this is, because this little thing is in the way. I wish I could get it to go away so I can see what the slide says. DSCR is always an option as well if you want more properties, if your debt to income ratio is already currently capped this year. So what I recommend with that, though, is if you're trying to get more properties next year, do an LLC DSCR only loan. That means the LLC only is on the mortgage note and on the title. If you close the mortgage note in your personal name, no matter if it reports, they might say, oh, it's not going to report to your credit, but you're signing your personal name on the mortgage note, and they say that you have to sign, that will report to your debt to income ratio, no matter if it reports to your credit report. I like to say, like the system that the FBI has, they can see every single thing you own, everything, right? We have the same systems. It pulls back. We have to count it against your debt to income ratio if it's in your personal name. If you do not want this, you have to opt in for a true LLC only DSCR loan. We have this product. We close a lot of them. This is a lot of what we do. Many lenders will say they are LLC only and then report to your credit. This you want to make sure this does not happen, or it will mess up your portfolio growth plan for the next few years. Not even being dramatic, not just next year, the next few years, if you're trying to strategically plan for next year and the next year. Because if it becomes your personal debt, that's it. Like, that's it. So you want to make sure that it is a true LLC only DSCR loan if that's your strategy. Now, you're like, well, how do I know if I've filed, how do I know if my property has made enough rental income? This is where our rental income calculator comes in. This will be your best friend to see if your rental income you file on your tax return will cover your mortgage payment on the property you own. To what? To purchase more properties and expand your portfolio as quickly as possible. Banks do not know how to accurately calculate rental income, y'all. I'm here to tell you, they don't. This calculator will alleviate that and help you know your true rental income that you can use towards qualifying for your next property. Banks will just take what shows on line 1 of your Schedule E, which is your gross rents, subtract your total expenses, and that's what they give you for your rental income, which is not going to give you much at all or nothing. It's going to make your income negative. This calculator is what is supposed to happen. We add back in things like taxes, insurance, depreciation, mortgage interest is a big one. You're supposed to add all that back in. 99% of these lenders out there do not. This is why a lot of people have told you maybe you don't qualify. I have friends that have gotten turned down by 5 other banks before they came to me for their primary residence because they had rental properties. They didn't know how to calculate them. The banks didn't. They qualify. 5 banks told them they did not qualify. This is the difference between you not qualifying for the next 2 years to you being able to qualify right now for another property. That rental income calculator I just put in the comments. It's go.mortgage.shop/rental-income-calculator. It's on the screen as well. If you guys want to download that, a video will come with it. Don't worry, I'll teach you how to use it. It's basically plug and play. You can't mess it up. I mean, I guess you could, but not if you follow the directions. All right, so I'm going to, Laura, did you want to add anything to that?
I don't think so. I think you covered all that.
Can you vouch for banks not knowing how to calculate rental income?
Oh, yeah. I've even worked for a few banks over the years. So,
I do.
yeah. Honestly, the most of the loan officers out there just don't have the knowledge or experience to pre-underwrite the files. And then it goes to, an underwriter once you're under contract. And then you're at the mercy of that underwriter and, what they know and how to calculate it versus if you've got a good loan officer, they know how to call them out and say, hey, no, this is how it should look. This is, you need to add all this stuff back in there. But if you've got a loan officer that doesn't know how to read a tax return, you're just going to be dead in the water. So,
yep, we actually have pretty good underwriters, but we've actually had to teach the underwriters how to calculate rental income before. They've not added back in depreciation. They've not added back in mortgage interest, something, along those lines. And so that's why one created this rental income calculator. So my loan originators can easily share that with them if they want. And be like, no, you forgot to do this. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac tell you you're supposed to add these back in. And it's crazy how many underwriters that should know how to calculate this don't know how to calculate it. And we actually have to teach the underwriter. The cool thing is that underwriters that we work with are awesome and they're willing to learn. Banks, not so much. They're going to be like, nah, we're not doing that. So just keep that in mind. Posted that link for you again. I put the link up for the rental income calculator again for you guys on the screen. And now I am going to answer some questions. Here we go. How many months of rental income from 2024 do you need to show? We bought in August 2024 and was told to wait until August of this year. That could be true if this is your first ever investment property within the last 3 years, Chelsea. However, if you're working with somebody that tells you that and you've already got other investment properties, they are wrong. So there's a little guideline, and this is getting into the weeds of the guideline, but this is what happens. If you have owned, had ownership, landlord experience, rental income experience in the last 3 years on a property for at least 12 months, then you bought one in August of last year, and then you file that rental income. Well, we're now able to use that rental income and annualize it over the months that you just had it. So August, September, October, November, December, as opposed to the full year. Because we show that you purchased it then, common sense showed that you can't start renting out a property until you own it. You have rental experience, prior rental experience on other properties. So now we're able to use that rental income and you don't have to show 12 months on your tax return anymore. So if you have, again, prior rental experience on other properties, we can use it. If you do not, I do believe the guideline is we have to take it in account for the full 12 months. Or just offset basically what your mortgage payment is on that property. If you're a first-time home buyer and you don't have any experience, sometimes we're not allowed to use it. So it just depends on what your personal situation is. I'm going to put mine and Lori's contact information up at the end, and then we can kind of look at that with you and let you know what we can and can't use for you. La, 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 la. How much can we buy down a DSCR loan? I don't really think there's a hard.
It depends on the lender
Yeah.
that we go through. So if that's something that we want to use up all that money for, we can shop the different DSCR lenders. So unlike other brokerages, we're signed up with a whole bunch of different DSCR lenders. So we could see what their pricing looks like when you're under contract to see how we can, how low we can buy it down.
Yeah. So what Lori means is there's investors that offer these products that we're able to send your file to and originate with. Some have different guidelines based on how they sell to the secondary market. Some say you can only buy it down 2 to 3 points. Some say, you can buy it down, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's non-QM. They don't care. It just depends on your personal situation. And then if you do need to buy it down higher than, let's say, investor A, then we're going to put you with investor B. So yeah, it just depends on which product you want to be in. I will say that we will break down the payment for you because some people are like, well, I want to pay 2 extra points, which is like $12,000 to get my rate down by 1/4 of a point or a 1/2 a point. I'm going to do the math for you. I'm going to say, okay, well, that's $12,000 more at closing, but your payment's only going to be different by $150 a month. That's going to take you at least 3 years to see that back in extra interest. As an investor, it's totally different than primary, so just take that out of your mind. As an investor, it is not worth you at that point buying down your rate because you're just wasting money out of pocket where you could be taking that money and investing it in something else.
Unless the seller's paying for it.
Yeah, well, then that's not, yeah. If the seller's paying for it, by all means, because it's not your money.
It's not your money.
It is your money. I'm going to say it's not worth it. Your payment's only going to be a difference of $120 a month versus $12,000 out of pocket at closing. That doesn't make sense. So we kind of break that down for you so you can kind of see how many years it would take to recoup that amount that you're buying down that interest rate for. How do you check that a DSCR loan will only go to the LLC? You want them to put in writing in an email. Will I have to sign my personal name on the mortgage note, or will it just be the LLC? Now, in the beginning, you will have to have your credit ran as the owner of the LLC to make sure you're a competent buyer for the LLC, that you're not going through bankruptcies and things like that. you will be signing your name saying, yes, I own this LLC. But at closing on the mortgage note, you will sign your LLC on note, LLC on title. You want them to confirm in writing back to you that it's not going to report to your credit, because some of these companies have been claiming that, and then it reports to your credit. And then you will have that documentation to say, hey, you said it wasn't going to report to credit. Please remove this from my credit report. You want to keep a copy of that mortgage note to make sure that it just shows your LLC. You can also send that back and say, hey, you reported to my credit, but the mortgage note's just in my LLC. Please remove it. Due to, I'm going to give you a little acronym, FACRA. FACRA, Fair and Accurate Credit Reporting Act. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so no more questions right now. I will wait to have any other questions, whether it's what is, is this a good debt, or, my debt to income is capped, but my wife doesn't have anything. What would her scenario be? If you want to drop some scenarios in the chat, I can answer more questions. Until then, I am going to put up some banners for you guys. If you are wanting to go through your scenario, schedule a call, get pre-qualified, you can go to mortgageshopmlo.com and schedule a call, or call 800-816-7982 if you just don't want to schedule and call right away. You can also reach out to Lori personally. I highly recommend that with, trying to figure out which spouse to go with, essentially, or, hey, I think my credit's like 800, but my spouse is also 800. Then Lori's going to be like, well, let's see which one is going to benefit you more by purchasing in your personal name first and utilizing your debt to income ratio first, and then let's go to your spouse. Lori at mortgageshop.co, not .com. Again, I own the Mortgage Shop, but this is all financing short-term rentals. If you want to follow for market updates, product updates, these live event updates, follow at financing.short.term.rentals on Instagram. You can also find on Facebook, just search Financing Short-Term Rentals. That's our Facebook page. I, as well as Lori and other loan coaches on our team, are in there. We are the ones that are answering your questions. As soon as they come through and we get the notification, one of us will be answering those for you. That's where you can put all your financing questions in. We almost have 4,000 in that group now, so that's crazy for a financing group, which is awesome. And then if you have any personal questions for me, that's my email address, Brennan@mortgageshop.co, again, not .com. And let's see. I do not think we have any other questions. Oh, here we go. Any thoughts on how to deal with significant student loan debt? If it's in your personal name and you don't have, I don't know if that's yours, if you've co-signed significant student debt. It depends if it's in deferment or forbearance or whatever you call it. You can ask them what your payment will be. Do they have payment plans based on the income that you make? There are lower payments that you can get. You can refinance your student loans. Lori, do you have any advice on that for refinancing student loans or figuring out how to lower your payments on those?
There's certain companies out there that specialize in, refinancing student loans. So I would look online and check to see what their rates are, see if the new payment is going to be less than your overall payment with the combined ones that are reporting. And this is another reason, if you go on Experian.com, you can see exactly how much the payments are that those student loans are reporting and counting against you. So,
yeah. So I would do that. Chelsea, go to Experian, look at your monthly payments, see if there are options. Call these student loan agencies and say, hey, what are my options to lower my payment, whether it's consolidating into one loan, refinancing them to a better rate separately, things like that, and see how far you get with that.
it could also maybe, if you've got a primary and you don't have your home equity line of credit, I mean, you might be able to get a home equity line of credit that's going to have a smaller payment and pay off all that debt as well.
Yeah, that depends on
Lots of
what
different
your interest rates are and your student loans, depending on. I really think the way they do student loans are awful because they basically let an 18-year-old sign for these student loans. 18-year-old doesn't know what they're signing for. They don't have any credit established. And you might be able to get a better HELOC rate on your primary to pay off those student loans and just pay the HELOC back. That's a really good point. So keep that in mind. If you have a good relationship for your primary residence, for HELOCs, for your investment properties, we do those all day long. Your local bank will not, so reach out to us for those. But for your primary residence, you may be better off going to your bank that you have a relationship with or who has your mortgage for your primary and asking what their HELOC rates are, because you may be able to get a low introductory HELOC rate with them because they want to keep your business. Be sure to let them know that you're pricing out HELOCs between banks and would love to keep your business with them. And hopefully they'll give you a good starting out rate in the beginning for that. If there are no other questions, I'm going to let you guys go. We're already a little bit past. I try to keep it at 40 minutes so I don't lose people's attention. Your homework next is to sit down with your spouse and talk about good debt versus bad debt. Who has the good debt? Who can obtain the good debt now going forward for your portfolios, for your real estate transactions? How can we offset some? Do we need to offset some? Next, if you don't know that and you don't even know how much you qualify for, then you come to me or Lori, and that's how we will help you. We will look at your debts and everything like that and say, hey, this is kind of what we prescribe for you based on what you just told us that your goals are. If you have any questions, feel free again to reach out. All of our contact info is in the comments, and we will talk to you soon. See you guys.
Have a great day, everyone.